Good day, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, yes, I can. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dr. Cobbs, are you here? I see you on I see your name.
Okay, yes, I am. Sorry about that. Let me turn on the camera. I was trying to sign in with my um anyway, I'm just gonna turn on the camera. I was trying to sign in. Uh Let me just do this. Okay.
All righty. All righty. How are you, brother? Good to see you.
Good to be back here.
Welcome back this side.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. So, I believe we are already recording. We have custom live stream going. So let's get started. So welcome everyone to the African Center for the Study of the United States' weekly delve into the presidential election, the United States' presidential election 2024. We will host these weekly sessions delving into different topics related to Africa, the diaspora, and the presidential election. Today we are talking about Black Greek letter fraternities and sororities, otherwise known as the Divine Nine. Our two panelists today, or guests today, are both members of the Divine Nine, and we would like to learn more about these organizations and the role that these organizations are playing in this year's election. So, I will allow my guests to introduce themselves, and we will start with ladies first.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good morning. My name is Sharita Stevens. I am the chartering and current president of the Southern Africa Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa, and very happy to be here with you today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Dr.
Yeah, sure.
Cobbs?
Yes, my name is Will Cobbs. I am a recent transplant here to Johannesburg, just a little over a year, but I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And I was made at Beta Beta Lambda in 1993, the spring of 1993. So I'm very excited to be here and becoming active in doing the work of Alpha in Johannesburg and South Africa at large. Thank you.
It was
All
spring
right, let's start here.
93 over here too.
Oh, spring
Oh,
93.
y'all sands. Y'all are
Yes.
Yeah.
sands. All right. So let's start here. Can you tell me about and maybe we'll start with Sharita. Can you tell me about your organization, why it was founded, when it was founded?
Absolutely. So Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated was founded January 1913. At the time of the founding, exactly almost 2 months later, the 22 founders of Delta Sigma Theta went on the Women's Suffrage March in Washington, D.C. So our organization was founded in social action with the first Service Act being, marching in Washington. There were 22 African-American women marching with 5,000 women in the crowd. So that was the foundation of the organization. So we are rooted in social action and voting rights for all. And so that's just a little bit of a snippet of how our organization was founded. And right now, today, our ideals is basically what we're saying is fortitude on the front line, election 2024 in a nonpartisan way. We need to get out the vote. I'll come circle back to that, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a brief history.
Absolutely. Dr. Cobbs?
Yes, certainly. So Alpha Phi Alpha was founded on December 4th, 1906 on the campus of Cornell University and started with seven of which we now affectionately call our seven jewels, which are our founders. And it started out as a study club. During that time, of course, higher education, as was all education in the United States, was segregated. And so these seven men, what we call our jewels, the seven jewels and founders, gathered together to support each other in their pursuit of higher ed and therefore achieving academic excellence. We have as a slogan, a voteless people is a hopeless people. So we are rooted in education, rooted in the kinds of equality of social action and all those kinds of things. And I'll get more into that a bit later. So yeah, so that's the foundation of Alpha.
All right, I'd be remiss if I don't mention the foundation of my organization, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity, founded in 1914 at Howard University by three young men who had a dedication to, as we say, culture for service and service for humanity. So I see that same spirit in both the alphas as well as the deltas. So I want to ask, why are Black Greek letter fraternities and sororities important to Black people? What's the significance of these organizations? Dr. Cobbs, I'll lob that one to you.
Sure. So historically and throughout history within the Black community, being a member of the Divine Nine has indicated a certain level of responsibility and a certain level of educational achievement, especially during the time of segregation. So that level of coming together and achieving Black solidarity during the days and perhaps even earlier than Jim Crow was something that brought us together within these organizations that motivated us towards not just social action, but moving us toward being unified in a way that presents the Black community in the spirit of excellence, in the spirit of coming together to achieve, to progress, and to move forward. I think all of the D9 institutions have that, not just as a part of their mission or perhaps purpose, but also in the action that they engage in. So historically, it has always been that. And then you connect it to campuses all across the country. There gives that kind of national presence and that national sort of mission in moving forward in doing the work of what the D9 does. So that's my short answer. I could go on, but yeah. You'd like, I mean.
Sarita, your thoughts?
No, great answer. I don't think I can add much to that other than just the network of supports that we needed for each other when other university and colleges wouldn't accept, students. Just the social and legal changes that our people went through. So I echo everything that Dr. Cobbs just said.
I'm sorry. Why are Black fraternities and sororities? And we asked that. What differentiates the Divine Nine from other Black Greek letter? I mean, from other collegiate fraternities and sororities? Why is it that we hold this lifetime membership to these organizations? So maybe speak on that momentarily.
Yeah, well, I would say, just like you mentioned, it's a lifetime commitment, right? It's this lifetime commitment to excellence in a way that when you become a member of the D9, it is to your understanding, and perhaps very differently from other organizations that are on college campuses that don't have the history of service to the African American community or those who were not founded as Black Greek letter organizations. Oftentimes, what they do is relegated to their time in college or university. It is with the understanding that we pledge or do intake to with our organizations that this is a lifetime, as you just asked, within the question, because there has to be a lifetime commitment because we have had lifetime oppression, quite honestly. And so in the idea that we are founded, we must continue with that. And you see just as much as in my case, or many cases of all of my fraternity brothers, and I'm sure other members of the Divine Nine, where this commitment does go beyond graduation. It often intersects with other social organizations, with other social responsibilities, whether those be professional or religious or social, educational, otherwise. Those commitments, you will find fraternity brothers and all members of the Divine Nine engaged in that way for the rest of their lives. So it's it's never just after I finish college, it's over. It's really when the work actually begins, because now you have the resources, hopefully, to make that kind of impact.
Absolutely. Sharita, would you like care to add?
No, just adding to that, I think the collective strength that the Divine Nine have across we're better together. We're individually we're strong, but when we're together, collectively working together, we're not competing. We're just here for each other. So I think that brotherhood and sisterhood that we've always had, that bond, like Dr. Kopp said, this is a lifetime commitment. When we made our oaths, it was not just until we graduated. It was not until something we know we come and go, we know things happen in life, but it's always going to be, you can always come back. And even if you you take your break, you always know when you're out in the community, you are working for women's rights, for reproductive rights, for voter rights. We're always there on the forefront, working together. So it's always been a collective effort in my assessment for the Divine Nine.
It's just very true. I just wanted to add, thank you so much that she brought up the whole idea of solidarity and being a collective effort. That's something that I believe now, given to, I'm sure we're going to get into this, but I'm feeling the energy already. How we have to be at this point where our country is unified. There has to be a sense of solidarity that understands the strengths and the similarities, and perhaps through even because of solidarity, understanding our strengths and our differences, because that is going to be, I believe, a part of the saving grace of what America is experiencing, and especially now in this particular election cycle.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this election cycle. In the past, we've had Jesse Jackson, who was a member of Omega Psi Phi, run for president. We had Shirley Chisholm, who was a member of Delta Sigma Theta, right? But this feels different. Why does this feel different? What is the significance of Vice President Harris's membership in AKA? And then why does this kind of feel different? So when I say AKA, I mean Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I want to make sure I'm not disrespecting anybody. But what is the significance and why does it feel different this time?
I've been trying to put that into words, the feeling that we feel. And I've been struggling, I'll be honest, trying to put it into words, aside from the historic moment that we're hopefully about to see. It's just the time that we're faced with right now, needing not just Delta Sigma Theta, but every single D9 member on the front line, just engaging with our communities. This is when we are mobilizing, we're registering to vote, we're educating, we're showing people how, even from abroad. I have been living in South Africa for the last 30 years, and this is the first time I've actually seen the excitement to vote from abroad, to make your vote count, to vote early, the I guess the energy that I'm seeing, that I'm feeling. So trying to put it into words, I've been struggling with that, but maybe Dr. Cobbs will be able to put some words to it. But just that energizing feeling that I've seen in the community, and also with the getting out the vote, and working with other organizations to get out the vote. I think that this is the really, in all my years of living here and voting from abroad, this is the most energized that I've been as well. So over.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think it brings a perspective of being an expat for the number of years that you've been in South Africa. I would say it reminds and energizes a sense of urgency. We are, my father, who would have been 96 in October, just passed a few months ago, but I remember him on being age 95 telling me that he has never seen in those 95 years the country be as divisive in a way that seemed to be more institutionalized and less overt, if that makes sense, because he lived, of course, through Jim Crow. And some of the things that he was able to see before his passing, and we would have several conversations about this, is that the country now seems to be in a place of just a battle for its very soul. And the clarion call to D9 organizations is to give that call within the narrative that is empowering and supportive, not just to vote, but to take a higher responsibility of social action. And that is something that I felt a little bit of it, of course, in Obama in 2008. But that, in a way, seemed to be a first time that, because he was Black identified as Black in a way that was more history making and had more of a sensationalism to it. This seems much more urgent and much more concrete to the life and the way that we live in America. And so with that, this sense of urgency with a few days left, I think with her being a member of the D9 reminds us of just how important this election is, but furthermore, for future generations, the imagery of that, the power of that, her also being an HBCU graduate, because those things are uniquely African American to how we are presented, not just to each other, but to the rest of the world. And so, yeah, I think it's just a sense of urgency that I feel.
Man,
But
I love that perspective. I'm
okay.
sorry, go ahead, brother.
No, I was just gonna say that Sharita is right. When she said she struggled for the words, I sat here and I thought, Mr. Writer Wordsmith, I would have to agree. Yeah, it just feels different, right? It feels like, I don't know, because the country's in a different place. So the words may be a bit more difficult to find. So I do agree with you there. I'm sorry,
I
Asada.
agree. I agree. It's that urgency. It's that it's just this urgency of just doing everything you possibly can to ensure that we get out the vote, the early vote, the elderly, go to church and to register some folks after church, have some tea, or get help it wherever you can. If I may share a story, I had the opportunity about a year ago when Vice President Kamala Harris came to our convention in Indianapolis, July 2023, and she addressed us at our social action luncheon. And just at that point a year ago, obviously not thinking ahead a year later where we are now, just some of the points that she hit on back then was that voting affects so much more than it's down the line. It affects the appointments of judges, of Black women judges, of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, our honorary member. Like, there are so many aspects of this voting that's deeper, and for the future generations of what we're looking at, uh, just the passing the laws that are banning like drop boxes or limiting early voting or making it illegal just to even give food and water while you stand on a line. So that's the impact that I see, really the deep-rooted impact that I see when she addressed us and, just hit upon those points that it's a lot, there's much more at stake now more than ever. Over. Thank you for that opportunity. to-
No,
That is
no,
excellent. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Doc.
no, I was just going to say, yeah, so a part of the narrative now, as we all know, has been charged with all kinds of divisive language that has reached and will continue
Mhm.
to reach and be sustained at a boiling point. That's why I mentioned urgency. The American way of life, or what many of us call a democracy, is at stake. I won't unpack that right now, but all those things are based on the language, the narrative, the way propaganda, the American propaganda of the greatness of our country is starting to unravel a bit. I think the world is being revealed. Thank God for social media. And I mean, we are being revealed, I should say, to the rest of the world. And so, in a way that this election and some of the candidates in particular, and those who support him, are oftentimes engaged in vile language that has power. Words have power. And the underbelly, I'll be kind, of America has been incited in a way that we don't necessarily see, or if we do see it, and some of the tragedies that go along with some of the policies, like the NRA and the school shootings. I think we've become really, really desensitized to a lot of this because it is happening now so more frequently, because it has a storyline that can be skewed in either direction. And people are making choices before they hear, listen, and respect one another. And so this election has all of that within its context, and why we should be voting, being as informed as possible. I mean, a lot of the things that you mentioned, Sharita, are so true. Not being able to get water when you're standing in line. You know, it's gonna be hot. I'm from the South. I'm from Florida. It's very humid. And just those kinds of things, and purging some of the voter rolls. And I mean, some of these actions are so blatant in a way that I thought I'd never see in my lifetime, because I believed, especially with the election of President Obama, I thought, foolishly, or, with a certain level of naivete, that we were going in the right direction. But there seems to be a lot of backlash, and that backlash has been sustained, I would say, over the last 8 years, if you know what I'm saying. Mhm.
Absolutely. So I have a question. And first of all, thank both of you guys for your responses. That and Dr. Cobbs, the pointing out the kind of, I don't know if it was sensationalism around Obama, but there was more of an aspirational tone, and then and this sense of urgency with Kamala, with Vice President Harris is different. It's still the ultimately the same reaction is going to mobilize a lot of voters, but one was for, I want to fulfill the dreams of my ancestors, and one is like, I want to save the future for my children. But I wanted to ask you this. So Sharita brought up Supreme Court Justice Jackson. If Vice President Harris wins this election, she will be an AKA being sworn in by a Delta, holding the Bible of Martin Luther King, a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. Now, I know that made us smile, but I have two questions. The first question is to speak to the significance of that particular moment if it were to occur. But secondly, there are people who are saying, so what? It's symbolism. What do you say to that critique?
You want-
You
I-
first, Dr. Cox.
okay, yeah, I'm gonna always do the ladies first thing. I believe words and imagery for future generations, especially now, given by us living in the age of social media. We are bombarded with images and pictures, things that support us, things that deceive us, things that are truthful, a lot of things that are not truthful. I think it has value and is greatly impactful in that way. Historically, I remember one of my professors made it very clear, to be ahistorical is to be asinine. In other words, we stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us. This is not a new thing, or as what Kamala says, I'm sorry, Vice President Harris says, what did you think? You just fell out of a coconut tree? Those kinds of things. We have to remember where we come from. And with the age of information, we've been bombarded with the present and hope for a oftentimes delusional future that forgets our history. And so it fits the cravings, and it fits oftentimes fabricated ideals that don't support the community, and is oftentimes very selfish. This kind of imagery defies that and remembers where we've come from and how far we've come, in a way and in a moment that we're hopeful for in January, that I believe will speak volumes, not just in the moment, but to know how we, within the past few months, not just historically, but recent historically, come to the point of having to overcome all of the things that Sharita mentioned, all of these pitfalls and all of these things that are presented as deterrents, even legally, not being able to certify elections, threats of violence if the election doesn't go a certain way. When we get to that day, we will have overcome those very real threats, not just to the democracy or to our country, but specifically to the African American community. And I think it serves notice to say how strong we are, right? We can do it. We've done it. We will continue to do it. And our ancestors have done that and even more, not on the perhaps stage, but to overcome threats of death. Our history in America is replete with threats of those kinds. So I think it's very important, to answer your question.
If I can add to that, and you said that so beautifully, I think that imagery that you mentioned is so important. If I can get a little personal, I want to just say I'm a Jamaican immigrant, born in Jamaica. I have an Indian father. I went to America when I was 7 years old, grew up in New York. I went to Morgan State University, a historically Black university. I initiated at Morgan State at the Alpha Gamma chapter. So I feel when I look at that visual and that visualization that you just put out, Dr. Assad, I saw that on the stage. I saw inauguration day, and that gave me chills because I am a child of immigrants, and so when we see that imagery and you see yourself in that, and that's something that you can't take away, what the historical context is or what it means to people. I'm 53 years old. It's still, imagine if someone younger is coming up seeing that image put before them. So, the immigrant thing is in 1979, when my family moved from Jamaica to America, the United States wanted immigrants. They were looking for immigrants to come to America to do the jobs that maybe nobody else wanted to do, the skilled work. My father didn't even have a high school degree, but he did go on to live the American dream, working in the United States, bringing all of his brothers and sisters up one by one. That was how we did it in Jamaica. One went to America, you brought the next one, you sponsor the next one and the next one, and that's how our immigrants from Jamaica got there. So that imagery to me, just to go back to that, what you mentioned, seeing that visualization, that's what it means to me personally, but I can't imagine what it means to other little young boys and girls out there that may see that. And we can be hopeful and optimistic about that. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I just want to chime in. I have two boys, 14 and 12, two sons. They were born under a black president, right? They had no idea that a black man couldn't be president because a black man was president, right? So there is certain power and symbolism. I believe that if Vice President Harris is elected, children, women, particularly Black women and women of color all over the world will dream more profoundly and more deeper. So it is definitely something significant about the moment. There's something significant about symbolism. I think but in the sense of urgency, as we spoke about before, I think that's where the critique comes in. We understand it is symbolism, but listen, we're we're in a hell of a situation, so we need something more than that to push our community that we all agree has so many problems, so many concerns. We need something more than that, more than symbolism, to push the to push our agenda forward. I you mentioned President Obama, and I think that there has been a shift since it is so urgent, right? But we also have an example of this first Black president and how we behaved and how we operated under his administration, and we see where we did well and we see where we made some mistakes, right? And I think that this time we are looking again to say we don't want to make the same mistakes of the past. But I want to ask you guys this. What are your particular organizations doing? Like, what is Alpha doing? What are the Deltas doing currently in terms of voter mobilization and other things, raising donations? We know that once Vice President Harris was nominated, the AKAs kicked into action like in 5 minutes, and then they had the rest of the D9 behind them. So I want to know: are you guys continuing? Are your organizations continuing with the support? If so, are there some national voter registration drives, national donation campaigns, or anything that people should be aware of?
I'll go first here because as
Okay.
usual, the sororities always, I think, typically do more than the fraternities. So, right down to raising money. We've had these conversations in our local fraternity meetings, how it's oftentimes embarrassing when we look at the deltas and the AKs and the zetas. and of course SG Rose as well, how there's so much more that you all do. But I will say on the local level, my chapter has always had voter registration drives and connecting with other social institutions locally, how we are able, wherever we are members, or perhaps wherever we are able to do the email blasts and those kinds of things, and set up opportunities for voter registration drives at particular churches, or perhaps even at other venues that are within the communities of which we serve locally. Nationally, there's always going to be, that kind of effort every election year. So that is nothing new, as all D9 organizations do during the election year, for us to get out to vote. So yeah, it's ongoing. And I just think this year, as I said, has a particular urgency with that understanding. Because I want to say something about your wonderful story, Sharita, about being your father being an immigrant. And I just want to quickly do this and say that the history of America is that they've always brought us to be the laborers, the ones who build the country. That started with enslaved Africans, of which many of us are descendants from. So that is the history of America. And it seems as if once our job is finished, there seems to be a disrespect or disregard, oftentimes a dismissal. And especially during this election cycle, hearing rhetoric, very dangerous rhetoric, right? I talked about it as a narrative, but it's just rhetoric because it is baseless. It's not based in truth, and oftentimes it's delusional. So when you hear things like, go back to where you came from, how dare you, when we built where we are for you and me, those kinds of things. So historically, I just wanted to throw that out there. Sharita, I'm sorry, but I wanted to go
No,
back to the before.
no,
Mhm.
100%. Thank you.
Before you jump in, Sharita, I
Mhm.
just wanted to address Dr. Cobbs very briefly. When you started speaking, you mentioned that women have always been kind of leading this work. And isn't that the same thing that happened during the civil rights movement? Right?
Mhm.
We had all of the black men, Dr. King and Ralph Abernathy, but it was the
Mhm.
sisters who were in the churches who were
That's
actually doing the work.
Mhm.
So it is beautiful to see now that our sisters at the forefront, but we have to do better. Black men
Mhm.
and members of these D9 organizations, the Alphas, the Omegas, the Sigmas, the Iotas,
yeah.
the Kappas, we have to do better. So
It's very
Yeah. Yeah, no, no, absolutely. So what I will say is you cannot outwork or out organize our D9 brothers and sisters. Okay, let's just be clear that we are hardworking. We're going to organize. We're going to get you after church. We're going to come to knock on your door. We're going to go from abroad. We're going to get you from abroad. And in our particular chapter in Southern Africa, alumni chapter, we span 17 countries across Southern Africa and Kenya. So our particular, strategy is to, in all of those countries where there are expats, to get them to register to vote, to make sure they tell somebody to register to vote. Just talk to one person, get one person registered. It's the small votes from abroad that will make a difference. So that's what we've been focusing on, is the vote from abroad. But in our organization generally, we take a nonpartisan approach, but we have our theme is Fortitude on the Front Line, election in 2024. So from that social action perspective, that voter registration and just helping people to get registered, and the young people as well, because those 18-year-olds are the ones that are on the colleges and universities as well, first time voters. But I will say it again, you cannot outwork or out organize our D9 brothers and sisters.
all right, I want to switch gears. It's still going to be about the D9, but I want to know if I'm someone listening, because we're live streaming on YouTube and we have people here on the webinar. How does someone become a part of one of these organizations? It may seem like a very basic question, but we have a lot of our continental brothers and sisters who may not even understand, this whole fraternity and sorority thing. So can we talk about like membership, and then why did you choose the organization you chose?
Can I go first? Because I'm going to be brief. You've been here
Yeah,
much
okay.
longer. So Rho Phi Lambda is a chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha here. I have engaged some of the brothers in the chapter, but I'm not yet a member. I've only been here like a year. Michael, and Tabo, and just a few of the brothers. Of course, the way that we do it is undergraduate. If there is a chapter on the campus that you are enrolled as an undergraduate or a college student, there is, your typical way that you can apply for intake. Intake meaning the process of what we used to call pledging. Intake, where you apply and seek membership within the organization with the fraternity brothers on that particular campus. On the graduate level, having a college degree and submitting that same kind of application for intake wherever you may find yourself located. We often in the metropolitan areas, there's several chapters. And then, of course, chapters in smaller cities and states all across the country, and even internationally. As I mentioned, Rho Phi Lambda here. I haven't engaged that intake process because I'm not as active as I'm sure Sharita is. So that's always very, very interesting. But we have chapters globally. What was your other question? Oh, and I'll just say, so yeah, my mother was an AKA. I come from a family of Omegas and Kappas, so I wanted to break that tradition. I come from a family that mainly went to Florida A&M University. I wanted to break that tradition, so I went to Morehouse, and so I was the one, but I always wanted to be a part of Alpha, Dr. King, Morehouse, the whole thing. So that's what gave me my whole reason for wanting to be a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And it is something that I take great pride in, but also great responsibility with, because I think that is what continues the legacy of excellence of the fraternity and individual understanding of the role and responsibilities that we have to uphold the light or hold high the light. So, yeah.
Oh, beautifully said. So when I was at Morgan State University as an undergraduate, as Dr. Kopp said, you have an undergraduate opportunity to be initiated into the organization of your choice. My choice at the time, Delta Sigma Theta just seemed like the perfect fit for me, the social action, and I read a book called In Search of Sisterhood by Paula Giddings, who is one of our sorority sisters, and it resonated with me. And so I went to something that we call a rush, and you show your interest, you apply. There is a very strict application process. There is something called grade point average. Your grades in university were very important, what your service, what you did around your community, how you impacted your community, what you did as a volunteer, all of those things as an undergraduate was very important. But as we are an alumni chapter, meaning that we're post university, we're in our formative years, we're working, we are alumni, or we call it alumni. And so you still have another opportunity. Our organization has 17 international chapters all over the world, as far as Japan, we have Okinawa, we have Tokyo, we have Germany, UK, West Africa, Southern Africa, the US Virgin Islands, Jamaica, Canada. So I hope I haven't missed anyone, but we are quite widespread and international. What the recognition of the sorority has been is that you don't just stop your lifelong commitment when you leave university, but there are a lot of expats, especially on the continents and all over the world. There are opportunities like in the Arabian Gulf, there's a chapter. So if you're in the Middle East, you want to be able to still have a place to call your home, your sororal home or your fraternal home, and still be able to serve and have your brotherhood and sisterhood. So what we do is we're not having any membership intake at the moment, but if you ever look out, we will eventually will advertise. We have to get authorizations, membership intake process. You apply, there's a process, and then there's a second process after that. Hope that gives a little bit of an explanation to everyone on their live stream.
Absolutely. So I want to pivot back to Vice President Harris. And Sarita, I want to kind of start this question with you. You guys have similar backgrounds. The Jamaican and Indian mixed is it Indian mixed ancestry?
Yes, so
Um,
my dad is from my dad is Jamaican Indian.
okay.
So yeah, and yeah.
Okay. So, what is the significance of what does it say that Vice President Harris, who was from mixed ancestry, chose number one to go to an HBCU, but number two to pledge these kind of historically black organizations? I always say that pledging, if you go to an HBCU, you get the gold package. If you pledge, that's the platinum package, right? You really are fully into this HBCU experience. So what does it say that she decided to pledge AKA, as opposed to just, going there her 4 years, leaving and pursuing her career else?
Sure, that's a difficult one, but I think as children of immigrants, you don't really know a lot about sororities or fraternities, especially coming from the continent. So when you're exposed to it, and then you see something that, especially I think with her particular background, with her mother coming from India and having that social action background, or having that, she had a similar background from India. Um, Probably just the attraction of a structured organization, maybe just fitting into, you resonate with wanting to do certain things, but maybe it was just a structured way of doing things. I'm not sure of the right answer, but I know for me as an immigrant coming from Jamaica to America, learning about the organization as well, all the sororities and fraternities, was new. So it's not something, and we have found on the continent that some of our African brothers and sisters from the continent, when they go to study in the US, then once they've been exposed to the organizations, it also has something that resonated with them and they initiated.
Yeah,
I just got to plug my organization, Kwame Nkrumah Pledge Phi Beta Sigma at Lincoln University. So it's something that resonates with, and we were the first to have a president. Anyway, but go ahead, Dr. Cobb.
no, I just wanted to say, especially now with the future generation, they are certainly more global citizens than our generation was at their age, given social media and just the world being completely connected now. I do work with young people out in KZN in the Valley of a Thousand Hills, and they will see HBCU homecomings, on social media, and they will inquire. They will ask me about that. So there is an opportunity for that imagery, that narrative of Black excellence to go throughout the world in a way that just didn't happen before. And so for future generations, I think it's very important to have a certain kind of representation that we bring as D9 members here on the continent, so that perhaps questions that these young people may have can be answered, because those were questions that were not asked before. We're dealing with a generation now that wants to know, or if they don't understand something. And so it's always fun for me to, and just inspiring actually, to see them not be so controlled or persuaded by a very narrow narrative of what it means to perhaps go to the United States to be educated, and they only talk about Harvard or Yale. Now that entire discussion, the context for that has been expanded because of social media and because of the excitement of seeing all these Black people together, celebrating during homecoming, intergenerationally so. And that always gives me a time to pivot from, I believe, the grander narrative that they've been bombarded with as it relates to wanting to go to quote unquote the best schools in America. So yeah, that's something that I quite enjoy doing.
So, what does it mean that she pledged AKA?
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, because once again, it feeds into the imagery, the narrative, one that I think is rooted in Black excellence, that we're finally getting a level of exposure, in one of the most important stages in the world, right? It gives an opportunity for us to have a real, the embodiment, if you will, a very present day embodiment of what it means to be Black and excellent, to be embattled, but still victorious. I think that kind of imagery, once again, speaks to and contributes to the narrative that we know that we are, versus the counter narrative. As I said, that's often rooted in the rhetoric that's divisive and quite honestly, oftentimes delusional. It brings a concreteness, if you will, to what we've always known, and oftentimes had to work harder just to get space and place to express that narrative. And so this gives us an opportunity to say, this is who we've always been. Um, we want to bless you so you can see just how beautiful this is. So.
I want to make sure that if anyone on the call has any questions, or if there were any questions from the live stream, please feel free to jump in. But while we get that together, I wanted to ask, um, we have seen the Divine Nine mobilize to support Vice President Harris. Assuming she's elected, what role does the Divine Nine play thereafter, both in the greater community, but as well as in the administration, whether it's appointments or accountability? I'll just let you guys take it there. Take it from there.
If I can add, I know that with the Biden-Harris administration, the Divine Nine leadership have been welcomed at the White House several times. There seems to be, from what I've heard and seen, is that there's just an open relationship of where the president can help, especially with HBCUs, in terms of financial, support. And in terms of other, we have many D9 representatives in many aspects of the White House, in running for office, for Senate positions. Currently, Angela also Brooks from Maryland's running. She's just one of the ones that just popped into my head. But, just in terms of getting more people involved in the electoral process, and just right down from the school district, running for school districts, and right up to the top, judges, judgeships, and so forth. So I see appointments like that. To me, would be a very important place to be, is also having the appointment of the judges that are going to be there for some time over.
Yeah, I would, I'm going to be greedy, y'all, and just say that I would like to see initiatives, funded initiatives with very real resources. Vice President Harris's eventual win, by faith, I'm going to say that, will demonstrate the kinds of excellence without question that an HBCU and members of the D9 are capable of and have been doing, right? So why not support the kinds of things that inspires future generations? The imagery is there, it's powerful. I think where the rubber hits the road is, what are we going to do? What committees? We can talk about the Raphael Warnock, Alpha. I mean, that's good. And that's my brother and all my sisters in those positions that we talk about. But we need some real, I'm a statistician, right? Methods and stats are my PhD is in. I like some really quantifiable outcomes. Show me, we live in America. It's a capitalistic society. Show me the money. What do we need to do in Congress? What do we need to do? Give me some outcome evaluation. Give me something that's impactful, that's going to last beyond something that's more qualitative or not as concrete. The imagery is good. It should inspire. It should empower. It should strengthen. But give me some initiatives. Give me some resources to make those initiatives come to pass. And I believe that we as D9 members have that voice collectively to another D9 member who will be our eventual president. That's what I'd like to see. And I call myself greedy, but to me, it's quite reasonable, to be honest with you.
Oh no, we're supposed to be greedy. Politics is a transactional relationship. I think that is the base of how I operate in terms of politics. We'll mobilize for you. Now I need to see the dollars come down for me. That's what I want to
The
see.
American way.
Well
Absolutely.
The American
So,
way.
so we're getting close to wrapping up here. It doesn't look like we have any questions. So I'll give you guys, a final statement, your final thoughts on the D9, the final thoughts on this election, final thoughts on Vice President Harris. Since I started with Sarita, I'll start with Dr. Cobbs.
Okay. Yeah, once again, it's a history-making moment that will be, I think, quite impactful for our future, given the urgency of us to mobilize and create a sort of sustainable future that is reflective of our own excellence, that I believe largely defines who we are as D9 members. And with that being said, I'm hopeful, but also willing, given the responsibility to work, to make those hopes and dreams reality. And that's what I believe she represents. And we ready.
We ready and we're not going back.
Okay, that too.
Well, I think for me, just not just only a domestic view, but the domestic and abroad as well. This election for me is very important as someone who is a permanent resident abroad, that domestically, obviously very focused, but that we do get some international scope as well, that we have some programming that's I don't know what the right wording is, bilateral or, whatever, just some sort of highlight on the continent. That particularly South Africa, because we live here, and just seeing some more action, but just this urgency, like I said earlier, there's just this urgency that we feel of needing this change for the better. And with our organization, that we focus a lot on, in terms of maternal health care, low income communities, child poverty, freedom to vote, getting out the vote. Those are the things that are top of my mind, and also just obviously that more international outlook as well. And yeah, I'm ready to have that sorority party.
D9
Man,
party.
y'all gonna be stepping at the White House, boy. Black people, black people.
Yes, sir.
So, but it was a pleasure speaking with both of you guys today. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I believe that those who watch and those who will watch the rebroadcast will learn so much and be inspired by your words. We will be back next week with a new topic next Wednesday, same time, same place. So thank you guys for joining the African Center for the Study of the United States election webinar series.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Dr. Cobb is gone. I wanted to invite him to the, are you still there, Assad?